You might have heard last week how Israel succeeded in closing 30 accounts belonging to NGOs that promote BDS, or about Germany's recent decision to condemn BDS as anti-Semitism. This and a lot more is due to the work of our next speaker. Gilad Erdan, Israel's Minister of Public Security and Strategic Affairs, and the man who is leading Israel's fight against BDS. His name is also being touted as a future leader of the Likud party. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Minister Gilad Erdan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Almost good evening. If you listen to me carefully, to my speech, maybe I'll announce today if I'm going to accept the Prime Minister's offer to become the UN ambassador, the next UN ambassador. No, I'm joking. I just want to get your attention to my speech. Not seriously. So, the owner of the Jerusalem Post, Eli Azur, Yaakov Katz, Jerusalem Post editor-in-chief, dear friends. Now let's get serious. On a sunny Jerusalem afternoon in October 2015, 12-year-old Naor Ben Ezra walked out of a candy shop and jumped onto his bicycle. All of a sudden, two Palestinian teenagers armed with knives appeared and cruelly stabbed him again and again. By the time Naor arrived at the hospital, he barely had a pulse. As the father of 4 young children, this is the nightmare of every Israeli parent. Miraculously, after a week in a coma, Naor recovered and several months later celebrated his bar mitzvah at the Kotel. But listen to this. The two terrorists, aged 15 and 13, had earlier prayed and left their homes in search of Jews to murder. They were driven, as you know, by Palestinian incitement claiming that Israel seeks to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This was just one of the 108 terror attacks carried out by Palestinian youth during the wave of terror, a wave that has included over 500 stabbing, shooting, and car ramming attacks. This month, Palestinian Authority Prime Minister Mohammed Shetaya said that politically they cannot take it that their kids in jail are terrorists. Do you hear what he is saying? He is saying that the PA leadership cannot accept that Palestinians who murder Jews are terrorists. Friends, this statement is the very heart of the Palestinians' ongoing conflict with us. The conflict is not and was never about territories or the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. It is and has always been about anti-Semitic hatred for the Jewish people and the rejection of our right to a homeland anywhere in the land of Israel. Of course, the PA's problem is not just with accepting that murdering Jews is terrorism. And as PA President Abbas said recently, and I quote, "Even if we only had 1 cent, we would pay to the families of the martyrs and the prisoners." This is appalling. The #1 priority today for the Palestinians is encouraging and rewarding attacks against us. Again, can you believe it? Rewarding terror is so important to the Palestinian leadership that it's cutting salaries and harming thousands of Palestinian families by refusing to accept the tax monies that Israel collects on its behalf, because we deduct the amounts paid to terrorists as any moral and normal country would do, and as the US is doing through the Taylor Force Act. And while the PA, very important law, and while the PA harms Palestinian families and undermines the Palestinian economy, it also making every effort to undermine President Trump's economic workshop in Bahrain. This time, they're really breaking a new record in living up to their reputation of never missing an opportunity to miss an opportunity. This is something that everyone must be made aware of. This is something that we all must speak out about. It's time to say loudly and clearly, Abu Mazen, who supports terror, incites murder, and promotes boycotts rather than coexistence, should exit the world stage and go home. Friends, a key principle that has always guided me in leading efforts to counter threats such as lone wolf terror and BDS is the need to take initiative, discard old ways of thinking, and shape new realities. When the wave of lone wolf terror began, I realized that we needed new strategies. I instructed the police to enter all Arab neighborhoods, including those that had become no man's land. Today, the terrorists know that they have nowhere to hide. They know that wherever they are, we will hunt them down and make them pay the price. I outlawed extremist Islamist organizations that were leading incitement and introduced new intelligence and technological capabilities to counter incitement online, which is a huge problem today. These initiatives, along with the bravery of our police officers and security forces, have enabled us to successfully overcome this wave of terror. And today, security forces from around the world are coming to learn from us how to counter this new kind of terrorism, the lone wolf terrorism. The principle of taking initiative and taking the fight to the enemy also guides me in leading Israel's fight against BDS. When I was charged with leading this fight, BDS leaders operated freely and were largely successful at disguising themselves as human rights organizations. I understood that we needed to remove this mask. Well, we tore off their mask. We exposed their ties to terror. We exposed their deep-rooted anti-Semitism. We exposed their opposition to peace. And we exposed, of course, their hypocrisy. They couldn't care less about the real human rights violations, for example, in Iran or in Syria. All they care about is demonizing and delegitimizing the words only Jewish and democratic state. Our efforts are producing results. 27 US states now have counter-BDS legislation. Let's give a hand to all the governors and state legislators who supported these laws. They deserve it. In addition, 30 financial accounts of BDS promoters, as Yaakov described, have been shut down. The German parliament, as you probably heard, recently passed a groundbreaking resolution recognizing the anti-Semitic nature of BDS. And today, my friends, for the first time, BDS is on the defensive. In fact, a senior member of the BDS National Committee recently said that our Terrorist in Suits report, which exposed the links between BDS and terrorist organizations, this report, by the way, we have it on our website as well, is the greatest threat to the BDS campaign. and I recommend that everyone read the report and share its findings widely. Now, we need to take the fight against BDS to the next level. We must encourage investigations of terror-linked BDS groups and promote legislation that counters all forms of anti-Semitism, including, of course, the anti-Semitic delegitimization of Israel. Now, friends, as I said, just as we took initiative to combat terror and BDS, it's time to take initiative vis-à-vis the Palestinians. The strategy of the Palestinian leadership has been to reject any offers and even negotiations and meetings with Israeli leaders, since they believe that the international community will eventually pressure Israel into accepting all Palestinian demands. Demands like the return of millions of descendants of Palestinian refugees, which we all know means the end of Israel as a Jewish state. Now, all of a sudden, thanks to the new approach of the American administration, there is a price for their ongoing intransigence. All of a sudden, their rejectionism has led the US to take important steps, such as recognizing Jerusalem as our capital, Baruch Hashem. Yes. Moving, of course, its embassy, and steps like defunding UNRWA. This is the start, This is the start of a new paradigm, which means that the Palestinians must realize that time is not on their side. To advance this paradigm, we must take the next legal, moral, and logical surprise. It's not going to be a logical step, sorry. It's not going to be a surprise for you, but again, I think that today is the time to apply Israeli law to the Jewish cities and towns in Judea and Samaria. And it's not because we can do it because this is the Trump administration. These cities and towns, first of all, are legal, including under international law. I'm not going now to explain why, but they are legal. And there is no reason that they should be discriminated against. There is no reason that hundreds of thousands of Israeli citizens need to live under Ottoman or British laws just because Abu Mazen has chosen terror and a boycott of Israel over peace. Such a step would not preclude a future negotiated peace if and when Israel has a real partner. Israel, as you know, desires peace, and we've proven it. We made peace with Egypt, and we made peace with Jordan. But you can make peace only with a partner. And as long as there is no partner, we need to prioritize the welfare and interests of our citizens in every part of the land of Israel. Applying Israeli law to these communities is not only the right step practically, morally, and legally. I believe that such a step will also help advance peace. It will deliver a clear message, not to Abu Mazen, but to the next Palestinian leadership that time is not on your side. We will not sit around and wait. So I commend President Trump and his team for their efforts to advance peace in our region and the deal of the century. We need a deal, but a deal that will end a century of Palestinian Arab rejectionism. We need a deal that will make the Palestinians finally move forward. Friends, as we face all the challenges of Palestinian terror, Iranian aggression, BDS, and rising anti-Semitism worldwide, it's critical that we stand together, Israel and American Jewish community, Democrats and Republicans alike. I deeply believe that the strength of Israel and the Jewish people requires that we listen carefully to each other and look for solutions to areas of disagreement. We have to take into account both the complexities of Israel's vibrant, very vibrant democracy and the overriding importance of the Israel-diaspora relationship. We especially must stand together against resurgent anti-Semitism, whether it finds expression in attacks against Jewish communities or statements by members of Congress. We cannot allow anti-Semitic actors to turn Israel into an issue which divides us. The shooters in Pittsburgh and Poway didn't care, as Mr. Lauder said this morning here, didn't care whether their victims were Reform or ultra-Orthodox, Republicans or Democrats. In the fight against anti-Semitism, we are one family. And the most urgent mission for us today, as I believe, is to ensure that the next generation of both Israeli and American Jews understands the importance of the bonds between us. So friends, if we stand together, I am certain that we'll be able to meet these challenges and build a strong and thriving future for Israel, for the U.S. Jewish community, and for the U.S.-Israel alliance. Thank you very much. Toda Rabba.